This is Harun Gudadia of the CVP Development Engineering Team. This video will demonstrate how to configure the H323 refer transfer functionality of CVP with a simple example. Before we do this in real time, a quick definition of the refer transfer functionality. The unified CVP H323 service can perform a H323 blind transfer similar to the CVP refer, which allows unified CVP to remove itself from the call, thus freeing up call control ports. Unified CVP cannot execute further call control operations after this kind of label has been executed or the refer transfer functionality has been executed. For example, it cannot perform subsequent transfer back to itself or queuing to another agent. However, the CVP survivability can still be executed in this scenario. This feature can be used in both the comprehensive and the call flow director models. The example call flow we will exercise will be as follows. We will have a TDM caller dialing from a POTS phone 3448. Dial pair on the gateway will be configured to send the call to CVP as an H323 call. The call will reach ICM and execute a script which will return, in one example, a dynamic label as RF5023, or in another example, using the ECC variable, we will simply return just 5023. CVP will handle both cases. When CVP receives this label, it translates this based on the RF prepended or the ECC variable being set that this is a refer transfer and will execute this functionality. The CVP will issue a command to the gateway to initiate the H323 refer transfer based on this information. When the label, based on the label that is sent to the gateway, a dial pair will be matched on the gateway to place an outbound call to extension 5023 on Call Manager. So to look at the configuration point on the gateway that's required in order for refer transfer to work. One of the key ones is to make sure you specify this param ICM-RF to set it to a value of 1. This is specifically set on the CVP survivability configuration that's done on the gateway. You also need a dial pair for the inbound call that we will place. In this case, this is just a simple dial pair for this example for extension 3448, and when the gateway receives this call with that destination pattern, it sends a call to CVP as an H323 call. Similarly, the other configuration point on the gateway is when eventually CVP receives this, the RF label. This is the dial pair that it will hit on the gateway to send the outbound call to an extension on Call Manager using the gatekeeper. So this is again just a simple outbound dial pair that's set up on the gateway. On the ICM, there will be a script that will be configured, which will return either RF5023 for this example, or it will use the ECC variable user.h323.refer transfer, set that to Y, and then the label will simply be 5023. The software versions that are used in this example are CVP 702, ICM and CTI OS 721, Call Manager 700, a working version of the Dublin Call Manager release, and iOS 12.4.15 T1. Now start going through the configuration in real time. We will start at the gateway where the inbound call will come in. In this case, as summarized previously, the caller is dialing from a POTS phone, the number 3448, which will hit the inbound gateway and a dial pair on the inbound gateway to initiate the inbound call to CVP. So I will go to my inbound gateway. And I will look for the dial pair that I have configured for the inbound call. So 3448 is the number I'm dialing, and in this case, it is basically this dial pair that will initiate the call to CVP as an H323 call. Once the call gets to CVP, CVP forwards the call to ICM. In ICM, a dial number and a call type is configured to execute a script for the RF to initiate the RF transfer. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and reset the script and start with the configuration where we use the dynamic label with an RF prepended without using the ECC variable. We'll come back to using the ECC variable shortly. So, this script in this case is pretty simple. We have a start node that goes to a label node, and in the label node we just, instead of extension 5023 where we want to do the RF transfer to, we prepend an RF in front of it. We say OK, and then we go ahead and save the script. And let's put it in monitor mode to see the call come in. So when the call comes in to this script, as I mentioned previously, this label with RF prepended will be sent back to CVP. When CVP gets this label, it realizes that it needs to do an RF transfer because of the RF. So here is our CVP voice browser or H23 service, which will receive the RF label. It will then go ahead and send the command back to the gateway to initiate the RF transfer. So at that point, another dial pair is required on the gateway to initiate this transfer to extension 5023. So that dial pair is again set up here as listed on the slides previously. So in this case, the destination pattern is set to be hard-coded to 5023, and then we're going to do a session target RAS, which means do a gatekeeper lookup, and in this case my gatekeeper is configured to send this call to extension 5023 on my call manager. Now, there's still one more configuration point that we need to look at on the gateway, and in this case that is the ICM-RF parameter on the survivability script. So when I bring up the survivability script configuration, as you can see, there is the param ICM-RF set to 1. By default, if this parameter is not included, refer transfer is off. So once this parameter is also set on your survivability script, and the other configuration points we mentioned are in place, I will now go ahead and place a call to extension 3448 from the POTS phone, and that should, assuming all the configuration is correct, send the call to this agent phone, basically, where the agent is currently going to log into that extension. So the agent is going to go ahead and log into extension 5023, and then the agent should receive this call. So here we go. The call has been initiated. As you can see, CVP is receiving this call, and the agent's extension is ringing, so I will go ahead and answer. Now let's take a quick look at what we saw in CVP. Notice a new call came in from this IP address, which is my gateway, to DNS 3448. The call went to ICM, and let's take a look at the script. And we notice there's one call that came in, and then ICM returned RF5023 to CVP. So when CVP got that back, it initiated an outpulse transfer with this 88 pound prepended to the label 5023 that we sent it. This is the indicator to the survivability script to initiate the refer transfer. And we'll talk a little more about that on how we can use another prepender besides 88 pound as well via one of the VB admin commands. So in this case, the call gets sent to the gateway, and then the dial pair we mentioned previously, 5023, gets matched on the gateway, and then gateway placed the outbound call to the agent on the call manager that was configured on the gatekeeper. So I'm going to go ahead and hang up, and now look at the other configuration point we talked about, which is instead of using the RF label, we can use the ECC variable. So let's go ahead and change the ICM script briefly. Instead of using RF 5023, I will just use 5023. And before that, we will set the ECC variable the user.hp23 RF transfer ECC variable to either a uppercase Y or lowercase y enclosed in double quotes. Now before we send that label, we want to set that ECC variable, and then we want to send that label, in which case when CVP receives both this ECC variable value set, it will automatically append the RF in front of this label. So now I'm going to go ahead and save this and try the same test again. And the behavior should be exactly the same from the previous test we did. So now we'll go ahead and dial 3448 again, and let's see what happens in CVP. So at this point, we're going to see a new call come in. So we have received a new call. It is looking pretty much like the other call, and again the agent extension is ringing. We answer. And that pretty much summarizes the different way in which you can configure the H23 refer transfer functionality using either the dynamic label with the RF prepended or using the ECC variable without the RF prepended.